when it comes to the economic recovery and growth plan, the first thing to understand there is that this plan is for the entire country. Now, when you have a plan for the entire country, it means you have Nigeria as a body, but that body is made up of 36 states and a federal capital territory. Now, it will mean when you have such plan national, the sub-national entities that make up that national body should also be a part of the plan. So in which case, when you talk about implementing the plan, for example, an estimated $245.13 billion required to implement the plan, where it is expected that government will contribute 20% of that, 80% for the private sector. The understanding will be that the portion that is expected for the government is not about the federal government only, that the states and local governments. But maybe also one of the ways we can strengthen this is to look at that figure that we saw as the implementation cost of that plan and break it down into programs and projects. Now, when you bring it down to programs and projects, there are now specifics. It then becomes easy to encourage private investors to pick on which project they want to do. Even at that point also, every state government will be able to identify projects that fall within its own area in terms of either resource endowment, natural, human, technology, whatever. So now when you do it that way, it becomes easy for every stakeholder, whether public or private, to connect to the plan. And I think that is what the Joint Planning Board is working on. And the whole idea then is get more states to see this as our plan. And indeed, every Nigerian begins to see it as our plan and not just federal government's plan. And I think that is the missing link here.
And now, when we look at the last GDP report, right, 1.5% growth. It was slow in agriculture, manufacturing, and other key sectors that you expect to see stimulation of our economy. And then we saw some activities around the ICT and, of course, construction. So what would you be saying as an economist to policymakers, fiscal policymakers, on ways to incentivize, particularly investment into the economy, to really unlock growth and more jobs?
Yes, there are two things to look at here. One is, yes, we recognize that the real sectors that create many jobs in large numbers are agriculture, which of course still accounts for, over 20% of our GDP in terms of contribution. And of course, you look at manufacturing, which is doing anything between 9 and 10%. Now, between those two alone, you've recorded almost 35% of GDP contribution, and that is quite significant. Now, when you give more attention to those sectors that can spin off more jobs, then the question will be, what do they need? What do they require? So if manufacturing will thrive, the fundamental thing required will be power, as far as manufacturing is concerned. So how do we re-engineer the power sector? And one thing I put before the current administration when they were coming in, and this is a no-brainer, simply insist that distribution companies should meter all their customers. Now, when they meter all their customers, it means the users will only pay for what is delivered to them. If that happens, the likelihood is that the revenue that the distribution companies collect will drop in line with what they deliver. And as business people, the natural direction that we go is to look backwards in the value chain and now begin to think about what can we do to ensure we generate more, what can we do to ensure we transmit more, because if it is not transmitted, we can't distribute. So that will force them to look at the entire value chain, and then they begin to work together as a team, which is the concept in power generation and distribution. So generation, transmission, distribution will now be working together. So the more you generate and you're able to transmit, the more you'll be able to distribute, and then revenue will pick up. So now that will be the natural approach. But if the distribution companies are still able to generate revenue in spite of metering all their consumers, the situation is unlikely to change. So now that is one important side to it. Now when it comes to agriculture, again, look at the value chains. Why will a farmer go to the farm to produce, whether food or cash crop, The only reason is because there's somebody waiting to take the output from him or her, as the case may be. So the critical thing for the farmer in Nigeria is the market. And until we also begin to look at the model where government will guarantee the price of agri-produce, we may not get much out of the various interventions in the agri sector, in which case there will be a lot of energy put into that, a lot of resources put into it. But the ultimate outcome, which is to ensure we produce a lot more in terms of food security for ourselves and also in terms of creating jobs in the process. So in which case, what is lacking here is that end of the value chain, which is the market. Then, of course, we need to take very seriously storage and preservation, because these are the two major challenges that agriculture in Nigeria faces. But we've paid a lot more attention to the production end, but we have not given enough attention to the market end and the storage and preservation. So now when we do that, it means we are working through the entire value chain, and then agri and manufacturing can begin to play their role in the GDP in the first instance, then also connect that to the ultimate aim of development, which is to make growth inclusive. So now that is what we need to do. If you also look at the GDP for the second quarter of 2018, as you rightly said, the real growth was driven by the service sector. And services are meant to be built upon the foundation of agri to start with. Then you build manufacturing and agriculture, and services come on top of those two. That is the way development has gone in every advanced economy we see today, even the emerging ones. So until we give good attention to agri and manufacturing, we may not get inclusive growth that we desire.